Okay, let's talk about methods. So methods are a reusable snippet of code. Take, for example, this method here. I'm going to define a method called my_method. I'm going to use the keyword def in front of this myMethod definition to describe to Ruby that this is a method. Inside the method, I'm simply going to put the string, this is my method. Okay, not very useful yet, but bear with me. To call this method, I can call my_method anywhere in my code, and that will then execute the code that I defined inside my method definition previously. So in this way, we can reuse code. A method can also take an argument. So for example, if I want to pass a piece of information to a method, so in this case, I could pass a name to my method. Let's call this one myMethod2, and in brackets, I'm going to specify name. So this is the name of the argument that I'm passing to my method. Then inside my method, I'm going to say puts, the name is, and then using the interpolation from the previous lessons, I'm going to include that name argument inside my string. So what happens when I call this method now? To call the method, I'm simply going to type myMethod2 and pass it a literal argument. Let's call it with bond. Running the code gets me the name is bond. So you can see that the argument I've passed to the method now gets used inside the method. And in this way we can reuse code. One of the wonderful things about Ruby is that in many cases brackets are optional. So sometimes this makes code more easy to read. We can say myMethod2 and just pass an argument, in this case bond, and it will have exactly the same effect. That said, I encourage you in most cases to continue to use brackets. I find that actually makes things a little easier to read. So think back to our puts method. Look familiar now? We're actually calling a method built into Ruby and we're passing an argument. So the strings we pass to Ruby are arguments to the puts method. And guess what? You don't have to have one argument. You can have multiple arguments. Take this example. So def display_info, and I can take two arguments in this case, so name and age. And then below I'm going to call the method just by passing a name and an age variable. So imagine I've previously defined these variables. So this method will simply print out to the screen the name and age of any display info I pass to that method. It's important to understand also that while you can have as many arguments to a method as possible, really in practice you don't want to go any more than 3 or 4, otherwise it becomes a little unwieldy.